Good evening, everyone. So the topic today, which we are going to discuss, is related to General Studies Paper 3, Environment. So today we are going to discuss about the recently held convention, United Nations Convention on Biodiversity 15 conference. So this is also called Kunming Montreal Global Biodiversity कॉन्फ्रेंस एंड उसमें एक फ्रेमवर्क को हमने एक्सेप्ट किया, एक फ्रेमवर्क को इम्प्लीमेंट किया गया. द 15th कॉन्फ्रेंस ऑफ पार्टीज टू द यूएन कन्वेंशन ऑन बायोलॉजिकल डाइवर्सिटी adopted the Kunming Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework. So first of all, we need to know about what biodiversity is. Biodiversity is variety of life, the whole variety of life on the earth, because for the sustenance of one species, the other species is required. For the sustenance of one species, the ecosystem is required. So इसीलिए we are not self-sufficient. We dependent on other species. We depend on our ecosystem as well. So the concept of Convention on Biodiversity started from the Rio Earth Summit 1992. Three of the main documents on environment were open for signature in this convention, which were the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, United Nations Convention on Biodiversity, and United Nations Convention on Combating Desertification. It is a multilateral treaty under the United Nations Environment Program, open for signature at the Rio Earth Summit 1992. That's why on the same day, 5th June, just 5th June को जिस दिन इसको open किया गया था for signature, on the 5th June only, we celebrate the Environment Day. And this convention entered into force in 1993. India ratified the same convention in 1994, and the USA did not ratify Convention on Biodiversity. So there are reasons कि USA ने इसको ratify क्यों नहीं किया. Because USA does not follow the principle of sharing the benefits coming from genetic resources, sharing the benefits coming from biotechnology. So technological access देना पड़ेगा. That's why US and some of the other Western countries did not ratify this convention, right? Then comes the main goals of the convention. The main goals, there are three main goals of this convention. The first goal is, which is the conservation of biological diversity. Conservation of biological diversity. Why conservation of biological diversity is important? Because if there is no biodiversity, तो एक species के लिए there is some food niche. Food is required, habitat is required. Habitat will be maintained by some other species. Food is required, so the other species will function as the food for some other species, right? So there is a food web. So one species, we are actually interdependent. We are not independent, we are interdependent. We are interdependent on other species as well. So the sustainable use of biodiversity, we have biodiversity, and if we don't use the biodiversity sustainably, if we don't use the ecosystem sustainably, तो क्या होगा? All of these ecosystems will collapse. And once the ecosystems collapse, the biodiversity will start depleting. और इस तरह से जैसे ही biodiversity गिरती जाएगी, deplete होती चली जाएगी, उसका स्तर कम होता जाएगा, तो हमें देखने को मिलेगा there will be food shortages, there will be disasters, there will be the farming will not be very easy, the overall ecological balance will disturb. So that's why the sustainable use of the biodiversity is very much required. Then the third point is fair and equitable sharing of benefits arising from genetic resources and the technological access for the same. Genetic resources ke through, because genetic resources come under the global commons. These are global commons actually. तो इस पर सबका हक है बराबर बराबर. So some of the countries which had technology for this gene related, gene editing, genome sequencing से related, जिनके पास टेक्नोलॉजी थी, उन सारी की सारी कंट्रीज ने हर एक स्पीशीज, हर एक बायोडाइवर्सिटी का बहुत अच्छे से यूज किया एंड दे पेटेंटेड, उन्होंने नॉलेज को गेन किया, नॉलेज को अटेन किया एंड दे पेटेंटेड फॉर द सेम। और उनके पेटेंट करने की वजह से दिस इज कॉल्ड एक्चुअली बायोपायरेसी, बिकॉज उन्होंने ट्रेडिशनल नॉलेज, लाइक इंडिया हैज अ ट्रेडिशनल नॉलेज ऑफ आयुर्वेदा, वी हैव अ नॉलेज ऑफ हाउ वी कैन यूज टर्मरिक to get relieved by the pain, right? How we can use the केसर, इसके अलावा चंदन का यूज कैसे होता है, ठीक है। तो इन सारी चीजों का, इन सारी प्रोडक्ट्स का यूज कर उन्होंने क्या करा, पेटेंट कर लिया, एंड दिस इज कॉल्ड बायोपायरेसी, आई एम सॉरी, दिस इज कॉल्ड बायोपायरेसी। तो इससे जो आप बेनिफिट्स आपको हो रहे हैं, दोज बेनिफिट्स आर फॉर ऑल, नॉट ओनली फॉर द सम कंट्रीज जिन्होंने अपने नाम पर इनको पेटेंट करा लिया। द सप्लीमेंट्री एग्रीमेंट्स अंडर द कन्वेंशन ऑन बायोलॉजिकल डाइवर्सिटी आर, फर्स्ट इज द कार्टेजेना प्रोटोकॉल, and the second one is the Cartagena Protocol on Biosafety, and the second one is Nagoya Protocol on Equitable Access and Benefit Sharing, right? So first of all, let's come to the Cartagena Protocol on Biosafety. The Cartagena Protocol on Biosafety is related to the transboundary exchange of living modified organisms. अगर हम genetically modified organisms का transboundary एक्सचेंज करते हैं, उनको ट्रेड करते हैं, तो उससे हो सकता है कि किसी वो इन्वेजिव एलियन स्पीशीज बन जाए, हो सकता है कि वो एक इन्वेजिव एलियन स्पीशीज के फॉर्म में हमें हमारी इकोसिस्टम को, हमारी इकोलॉजी को और हमारी नेटिव स्पीशीज को डिस्टर्ब करें। सो दैट्स व्हाई कार्टेजेना प्रोटोकॉल में किया गया एडवांस्ड इन्फॉर्म एग्रीमेंट। अगर आपको ट्रेड करना है तो यू हैव टू इन्फॉर्म द कंट्री इन एडवांस। सो देयर आर some clearing houses as well which are called biosafety clearing house, कि उसके थ्रू होकर जाएगा। for that particular purpose we have a department called customs department, वो उसकी क्लियरिंग करेगा that this dispatch जो हमारे यहाँ आया है, this trade material, this can be taken in, this can be accepted or not, so उसी को बोलते हैं biosafety clearing houses। और उससे भी अच्छा है advanced informed एग्रीमेंट, कि आप पहले से ही जिस कंट्री के साथ ट्रेड करने जा रहे हो उसको पहले से ही आपने इन्फॉर्म कर दिया कि आप एक्चुअली क्या ट्रेड करने जा रहे हो, राइट। कार्टेजेना प्रोटोकॉल ऑन बायोसेफ्टी, द फर्स्ट इंटरनेशनल रेगुलेटरी फ्रेमवर्क फॉर सेफ ट्रांसफर, हैंडलिंग एंड यूज ऑफ लिविंग मॉडिफाइड ऑर्गेनिजम्स was negotiated under the aegis of the Convention on Biological Diversity. Then comes the Nagoya Protocol, which happened, this happened in the year of 2000, this was adopted in the year of 2000 and this came into force in the year of 2003. Then comes the Nagoya Protocol, which was adopted in 2010, COP10 in Nagoya, Japan. And the keywords and the key important facts about Nagoya Protocol are that it is on the equitable sharing of benefits arising out of utilization of genetic resources. The implementation of one of the three objectives of the CBD, the fair and equitable sharing of benefits arising out of the utilization of genetic resources, contributing to the conservation and sustainable use of biodiversity. Okay. Why the Nagoya Protocol was important? The Nagoya Protocol was important because some of the countries, they were exploiting the traditional knowledge of the eastern countries, right, like Japan, like China, like India, और वो क्या करा रही थी, उस पर पेटेंट करा रही थी। पेटेंट कराने की वजह से these countries could not use the same thing जिसको इन्होंने इवॉल्व किया, जिसको इन्होंने thousands of years की प्रैक्टिस के बाद इन्होंने जाना कि the हल्दी, the turmeric can be used in such a way, right, या फिर और बासमती चावल, right. Then in the same Nagoya only there was some targets which were fixed till 2020, right. So these were the 20 targets named as Aichi biodiversity targets. The government agreed to the strategic plan for biodiversity from 2011 to 2020, and its Aichi biodiversity targets in Nagoya, Japan. इसीलिए the 2011 to 2020 decade was the decade on biodiversity, United Nations decade on biodiversity. Then comes what is the importance of biodiversity. As you can see on the slide, that the first thing is the report of Intergovernmental Science Policy Platform on Biodiversity and Ecosystem Services, and they said if we continue exploiting biodiversity in the same manner as we are doing today, there we will see that about 1 million species will face extinction very soon, right? A quarter of the plants and animals it assessed for the 2019 global biodiversity outlook are threatened, right? Then the second one is the economics of biodiversity, कि हमें एक अर्थ में जितने resources available हैं, those resources will not be sufficient for us, so we need 1.6 times earth to live a sustainable life, right? तो इसका statement का मतलब क्या है? Current model of economic growth would require 1.6 earths. तो मतलब अभी हमारे पास जितना natural resources, raw material available हैं for gaining success, for attaining success, that much is not sufficient. For regularly, for continuous growth, we need 1.6 times of the earth's natural resources we have today, right? Then comes the domestic laws. Government of India कौन से laws लाए? These were all international conventions, these were all international protocols. अभी domestic laws, Indian government ने ऐसा क्या किया जिससे कि वो अपनी biodiversity को preserve कर सके, conserve कर सके? तो Indian government came with the Biological Diversity Act in 2002 on the lines of Convention on Biological Diversity, right? Indian government also came up with a digital library. क्योंकि बायोपायरेसी हो रही थी, आई रोट दिस पॉइंट ऑल्सो, बायोपायरेसी हो रही थी बाय द कंट्रीज लाइक अमेरिका, यूएसए बहुत ज्यादा बायोपायरेसी कर रहा था. इंडिया की जो ट्रेडिशनल नॉलेज है, आयुर्वेदा की नॉलेज है, मेडिसिनल नॉलेज है, हर्बल नॉलेज है, उसको चुरा करके द अमेरिका वॉज पेटेंटिंग ऑल ऑफ दीज रॉ मटेरियल प्रोडक्ट्स, राइट? तो टी जो कि इंडिया में टी स्टेट है, उसमें से बहुत सारी टी पर उसने पेटेंट कर लिया. कुरकुमिन पर उसने पेटेंट कर लिया, केसर पर उसने पेटेंट कर लिया, राइट? तो ऑल ऑफ दीज पेटेंट्स, इसको बोला जाता है बायोपायरेसी, बिकॉज ऑल ऑफ दीज प्रोडक्ट्स दे बिलोंग टू इंडिया, so you are pirating actually, right? So India opened a digital platform for sharing. India ने पूरा का पूरा जो डिजिटल प्लेटफॉर्म बना दिया और सारा का सारा जो ट्रेडिशनल नॉलेज है उसका एक्सेस पब्लिक कर दिया. The access is public. Now no one can get a patent on this traditional knowledge. So that platform is TKDL platform. It's very important for the prelims perspective. Then we again come back to the Kunming-Montreal Treaty, which recently happened, and the targets which were decided for 2030. Ensure at least 30%. This is a target 30 by 30. Till 2030, we need to achieve, we need to protect the 30% terrestrial area, terrestrial ecosystem, and 30% of the water, marine ecosystem, right? Then comes the resource mobilization. Resource mobilization के लिए global environment facility was requested. You will support these developed countries were requested. These developed countries will support the developing countries, right? Then comes the compensation for countries that preserve biodiversity. जो countries biodiversity को preserve करने के लिए कई सारे actions ले रही, like India is taking many plans, many projects, Project Tiger, Project Snow Leopard, dolphin, rhino, right? Then endemic species, lion-tailed macaque and all of that, नीलगिरी टार, उनके लिए क्या ecosystem development पर काम कर रहा है, wetland ecosystem development पर काम कर रहा है, तो क्या कर रहा है? Biodiversity को preserve कर रहा है. So India को उसमें भी compensation मिले. Halting human activity linked to species extinction, like overfishing, forest को cut करना, habitat loss. Then the point come, cutting pollution to non-harmful levels. Emissions को कम करना, उसके लिए industry में आई Z scheme, zero effect, zero defect. Then you see in for MSME sector especially. Then BS6 norms in vehicular pollution. तो क्या कर रहा है, pollution को लगातार कट करने के लिए, water pollution को कट करने के लिए pesticides का controlled use, then liquid nano urea, right? And many more schemes like that. Water का use कम से कम करा जाए, per drop more crop, and many other कृषि सिंचाई योजना से related schemes. Micro irrigation, तो इससे क्या है, ये सारी की सारी schemes चल रही हैं under the project to control or minimize pollution. Then comes the minimizing the impact of climate change and ocean acidification. I hope you know about ocean acidification. The carbon dioxide sinks in, carbon dioxide में sink किया और वहाँ पर क्या हुआ, ocean acidify होने लगा, ठीक है. Then comes the last thing, 2050 vision for Kunming Montreal Protocol and Global Biodiversity Framework. So there are standardized 4 goals, 4 targets, which is called the vision of 2050 for Global Biodiversity Framework. The first one is to stop the extinction and decline of biodiversity. Then the other one is to retain and wisely use ecosystem services. Ecosystems provide you with many services like coral reefs. You go there, you have a dive, you have a look there, that gives you the cognitive development, that gives you something like supernatural and bilkul out of the world experience, right? To ensure fair and equitable benefits. And there are other services also. So there are in general 4 services, provisionary services. We get fruits from forest, we get timber, wood, right? Uske alawa there are regulating services like mangroves give us regulating services. They are responsible for the early landfall of the storms. Then comes to ensure fair and equitable benefits to all from use of genetic resources. And the last one is to fill the void between available financial and other mediums of implementation and those necessary to achieve the 2050 vision. इसके लिए लगातार ग्लोबल एनवायरनमेंट फैसिलिटी को रिक्वेस्ट किया गया एंड डेवलप्ड कंट्रीज वर रिक्वेस्टेड कि 20 billion dollar will be given till 2025 and then it will be enlarged, enhanced to $30 billion till 2030. So this was the discussion for today. Thank you so much. I hope this was a very educative session for all of you and we will come up with more such sessions. And अगर आप बोलोगे इनमें से किसी भी topic में you are not clear about any topic, so we will further make a video on that topic as well. Thank you so much. Have a good night.